All right, players, question I want you to consider for this quick video here. Which comes first, the chicken or the egg? We're gonna think about it in golf terms. So the question I want you to think about is, are there things that good players, top players do that you don't do because you don't think you're good enough to do them? And if so, should you start thinking about those things now? Is it, in other words, do you have to think about those things to get good, or do you get good and then start thinking about them? That's what we're going to get into today. My argument in this problem would be that you have to start thinking more specifically or with more precision before you can actually get more precise when it comes to golf. So, for example, I was sitting here earlier while I was having breakfast. I was watching PGA Tour caddy player discussions for this video. That was something I wanted to talk about a little bit. And I was watching like Colin Morikawa talking to his caddy about a shot, and they were trying to decide whether it was 120, whether to play at 120, 121, or 122. Which is crazy to think about for probably a lot of you. But in Colin's mind, hitting a shot 120 or 121 or 122 all feel just a little bit different. Now, I'm not saying that most players can go out there and, hit shots with that degree of accuracy. And I would say that Colin honestly can't either. I mean, if he's trying to hit it 121, he's probably going to hit some that go 122 or 3 or 4 or even 5. Probably hit some that go 120, 19, 18, 17, 16. But the intention is there to hit a specific number. And he can, I'm not saying he can do it every time, but he has a feel for that number. Now, I would suggest that there's no way he could ever get to that point if he never thought about it. That he's able to get to that point you start by thinking in those terms. So today I'm going to go over just a couple of different areas of the game where you can maybe level up your thinking one notch wherever you're at. Take it up one level for 2024. Start thinking maybe a little more precisely or a little more specifically. I'll give you a couple of examples here in a moment. And I honestly believe that just starting to get your brain thinking in those terms, exact distances. I'm going to do some putting stuff here in a second, exactly what you want to have happen. Those are the kinds of things that will actually make it more possible down the road. And if you never think about it that tightly, then you won't ever get any better at it, in my opinion. All right, so let's talk about getting specific. We'll use putting as an example here. We've got like a 4-foot putt now. This is one of my training aids. It's the size of a cup. It's about the same size as my coffee mug here, which I'm going to use so you can see it on the video here. So if you think about like a 4-foot putt, right? Beginning golfers typically hit these pretty straight. And as you get better and better, you start to realize that there's things like break and so forth, and that straight might not always work. All right, so the level of getting more specific might be, an example of that might be going from hitting all of them straight to maybe having some that you hit straight towards the handle of the cup, some that you hit at the left edge, and some that you hit, say, at the right edge. So that would be a step up in specificity. You've got, instead of just hitting them all straight, now you've got straight, left edge, or right edge. Now you've got 3 options, so to speak. In general, I think the better the golfer, the more specific, the more options they might have, the way they think about this target that they're going for, the line that they're trying to hit, gets a little bit tighter and tighter. So for me, I think I counted up, I've got about 15 different possible starting lines on about a 4-footer, give or take. And I'm not saying that's good or bad, that's just kind of where I'm at. Some 4-footers I'll hit dead center. Let's take we already talked about the first 3, center, left edge, right edge. In addition to that, I've got, just left or right of center. So just like barely inside that. I'm going to move this up so you can see. Just inside center on either side. I've got middle right, middle left of the cup. I've got just inside the edges, on the edges, just outside the edges, like that would be the line, you know, biasing just outside the edge, just a little bit, one way or the other. Half a ball outside the edge, maybe a ball outside the edge. And if you add all those up, that's like 15 different possible starting lines, unless the putt breaks a lot. You know, in case there will be times where it's even more than that, but most of the time 4-footers can be holed with one of those 15 aiming spots. Additionally, I also think about the line, or not the line, the speed I want the ball to go. So that's a different way to think about these, and some different combinations work. For example, if a putt breaks a little bit right to left, you could play it, you know, just right of center firm. You could play it maybe here, one tick more normal. You could play it more out to the edge at a soft pace. And so depending on the speed of the greens and how fast or slow the putt is, I'm also going to be adding in a speed element to it as well. And that helps me determine exactly what I want to do. And I do believe that the clearer your picture is, exactly where you want it to start and exactly which speed you're trying to hit, will make you a better putter, even if you don't change your stroke at all. Just by thinking more specifically, your brain will start to react to that and try to, you know, be more precise with its putts. All right, let's talk about getting a little more specific with our thinking in terms of approach shots, okay? So basic approach shot ideas would be get a yardage, pick a club, okay? Hopefully everybody knows at least how far their stock swing goes with every club in the bag. If you don't, it's a good thing to maybe work on this winter. And of course I can help you with all of these things over the off season. If you want to create a better distance chart for 2024, that's something we can definitely do inside. Actually, it's pretty good inside with real golf balls. We can use your own golf balls and really dial it in. So this kind of takes two forms to this idea. We start with knowing our stock yardages. So like, let's just say I've got a pitching wedge yardage, a 9-iron yardage, and an 8-iron yardage. We'll just use those three clubs for this example. And I've got my stock yardage with those. This would be like regular range swing, regular normal full effort level. Pitching wedge goes 150, 9-iron goes 165, 8-iron goes 180. Okay, now that'd be a great starting point just to know those things, okay? But I think if you want to be a little bit better at golf, it's wise to, you know, be able to hit those clubs a few different distances, right? So in my yardage chart, I've got, for example, a neck high swing. It's not quite full. It's like, feels like 90%. It's one where I go back a tick short of normal, and that takes about 7 yards off. So I get a whole new bunch of yardages. My pitching wedge, instead of 150, goes 143. My 9-iron, instead of 165, goes 158. My 8-iron goes like 172. All right. Now, if you think about it, just having one off-speed swing gives you a whole bunch more distances that you can kind of target or hit, if that makes sense, right? In addition to this, depending on, once again, if you only have stock, maybe develop one off-speed one. If you've already got two, maybe develop a third one. I have a nuke swing. That's full effort. If I try to really murder one, you know, I can get about an extra 10 yards out of it. So now I've got more distances that I can hit. I also have a chest high one. That's a real short chest high one. And that takes off another 7 yards or so. So chest high pitching wedge, 135, 150 with the 9-iron, 165 with an 8-iron. So now, let me pull this over here. You can see I've got a bunch of different yardages I can hit with these different clubs. And then going from there, I can start to pick which, you know, let's say I've got, you know, 160, I could hit, you know, a full nuke pitching wedge. If that seems like that's what the shot calls for, I could hit a, you know, neck high 9-iron, a chest high 8-iron, depending on the height, the spin, the wind, all that stuff. So something I would advise you to think about, how many different yardages can you hit with a specific club? The if you can just add 1 to that this year, I think you're going to see an improvement in your score. Now, if we take that and add it along with our tactics or our strategy, we can then also be more specific, once again, with how far we're trying to hit it. So if you think in terms of like real basic level 1 stuff, let's say you drive your cart up to your ball and it says 160, and you just hop out of the cart and grab your 160 club. That's kind of like, unfortunately, that's what I see a lot of, right? But not all 160 shots are the same. So, to be a little more specific, instead of using the cart, you might use a laser, right? Carts and GPS sometimes are off by a couple yards here and there, and they might be off by as much as 5 or 6 yards, depending on where they cut the hole and how accurate the GPS is. So laser gives you a little bit more accuracy. I might turn your 160 shot, let's say, into a shot that's like 163. Okay, well, 3 yards doesn't seem like much, but it's something. It's not nothing, right? And then we can also get more specific about what the conditions are around us. Is it uphill or downhill? How much is it uphill or downhill? If you want to know, a lot of lasers have the slope indicator, the slope function that's not legal in tournaments, but they have a slope function built into the laser. You can certainly use that in casual rounds. I have yardage books for all the courses that I play big tournaments on, and within the yardage books there's little numbers in there for how much uphill or downhill it plays, and those are legal for use in tournament play. So I've got one for Omni. If you're an Omni member, you might want to get one. Strakaline or PuttView has them. If you play there all the time, may as well get one. It's got green maps and all kinds of good stuff in there. But let's say that 163 is a little bit uphill too. Now it's 165. And it's on, El Dorado number 8. It's a little into the wind. Actually, that would be downhill, but it's a little into the wind. Now it's 168, right? Now we're looking at the lie. Maybe it's a little bit in the rough or on an upslope. Maybe it's going to take a little distance off. Or if you have a wedge in your hand, it might add a little distance if it catches a bit of a flyer. But these are the types of things that, if you don't already think about them, you don't have to think about all of them. Like, you don't have to go from level 1 to level a million, right? But try to take, let's say take 2024 and try to take your approach game to the next level, whether it's by adding in an off speed or a full nuke type of a distance, a different speed of swing, or whether it's paying more attention to things like the wind, the elevation, the temperature actually makes a big difference. The ball travels 1% farther for every 10 degrees in temperature. So if you're out there on a 50-degree day, or maybe you tee off and it's 50 degrees out, and it's 80 by the time you're finishing, that ball's going to go 3 yards or 3% further. That 3% takes that 160 up to, say, 165 or 6, 164 or 5, something like that. Those things all kind of matter. And if you never ever think about them, then you'll never be good enough for them to matter. So you start, the key here is you have to think about them before you can get better at them. It's not the other way around. You're not going to get really good at golf, then start thinking about this stuff. Start thinking about it now, even if you're not good enough necessarily to always hit your number. I'm not good enough to hit the number every single time, but at least I'm trying to. I think that's the difference. So as we've talked about here, in my mind, thinking more precisely or thinking more specifically leads you down the road of becoming more precise with your golf shots, with your golf game. I've only talked about a couple areas of the game today. I talked about putting and approach shots and yardages, things like that. But you could take this approach to almost any part of the game. You could take it to the short game with regards to landing spots and trajectories, and is the ball going to spin? Is it not going to spin? You can get more specific and precise with regards to your course strategy. Do you just wing it when you go play? Do you have a plan in place before you go out? I'm not saying you got to have a game plan for every single casual round you play, but you could. You could take this concept to looking at your statistics, starting with the basics. What did you shoot and what's your handicap? Down all the way to, some soft stats like greens and regs, some easy ones, or you could take it all the way to like a full strokes gained approach if you wanted to really keep track of your progress, identify your weaknesses, etc. So I didn't talk about every area of the game, but just when you're thinking about your golf game over the winter and what you want to get better at, think in these terms. I think getting a little more precise in your brain will help add some precision to your play.